This is the Rajdhani channel of All India Radio Delhi, broadcasting on medium wave 450.5 meters, that is 666 kilohertz. Welcome to the evening transmission, Sanj Tale. We begin the transmission with comments from the press.
This is All India Radio. You will now hear comments from the press. The Times of India, in its editorial titled "Jet is Grounded," writes, leaving an enormous question mark over the future of its 22,000 employees, Jet Airways shut operations on Wednesday. It is quite a fall from grace for the 26-year-old company that broke the monopoly of state-run airlines and operated 650 flights daily in its heyday. The projection was that airline passengers would clock a growth of 15.3% during the Modi years as compared to 9.2% during the Manmohan years. This indicator is indeed often cited to underline the economic performance of the current government when other indicators don't look good. But now it's in jeopardy alongside Jet Airways. Does the airline's downward spiral speak to the overall story of Indian capitalism? Over in France, the burning of Notre Dame Cathedral is being seen as emblematic of the social and economic crisis engulfing the country. A metaphor is only a metaphor, but in some cases it acquires a kind of hyperreality, and Jet Airways is no exception. India's airline sector has suffered from systematic woes, yet reforms like bringing ATF into GST and rationalizing airport charges haven't been undertaken. The Tribune, in its editorial titled "BJP's Tainted Pick," says, cocking a snook at the law and judicial process, the BJP has fielded Malegaon blast case accused Sadhvi Pragya Singh Thakur from Bhopal against Congress veteran and former Madhya Pradesh CM Digvijay Singh. Out on bail for the past 2 years, the Hindutva hardliner was discharged by a court of charges under the Maharashtra Control of Organised Crime Act, MACOCA, in the 2008 case, but she is still facing trial under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act and sections of the IPC pertaining to murder and criminal conspiracy. The Saffron Party and Pragya herself alleged that she was framed by the then Congress-led UPA government in an attempt to validate its Hindu terror theory. Business Standard, in its editorial titled "Transparency in Data," writes, last week the International Monetary Fund revisited its estimates of growth in Indian gross domestic product (GDP) for 2019-20 and 2020-21 and revised them both downwards by 20 basis points to 7.3% and 7.5% in the respective years. Prior to that, the World Bank had also revised its estimates of Indian GDP growth downwards to 7.2% for 2019-20, again lower by 20 basis points. These estimates are not out of line with the current official growth numbers for the Indian economy reported by the Central Statistics Office and are dependent, according to the two multilateral agencies, on certain policy steps that would step up the growth momentum over the next 2 years. Even so, however, one question should be asked. What provoked the downgrading? After all, neither the World Bank nor the IMF has independent data collection sources on the ground in India. So it is nuclear what additional data triggers a downward or an upward revision to the growth forecast by either agency. In another article of the Tribune, in its editorial titled "Missing Monuments," says, April 18th declared International Monuments and Sites Day by UNESCO in recognition with the significance of the preservation of heritage offers an opportunity to raise awareness about cultural heritage and diversity as well as the importance of protecting it, given the vulnerability of monuments to fall into disrepair. The day should also remind the authorities concerned of reviewing the efforts invested in this regard. Haryana, which boasts of a glorious history, is endowed with 89 magnificent sites that are being preserved by the Archaeological Survey of India (ASI). Information revealed by a recent RTI query on the maintenance of the state's monuments sadly once again underlines the low priority accorded to this field as well as inadequate means to undertake the specialized task of restoration and conservation of ancient buildings. The Pioneer, in its editorial titled "Rebuild France's Soul," says, Paris is most visited city in France, the most popular destination for tourists across the world. So while the Eiffel Tower and Arc de Triomphe are the most popular icons of this city, there is also Notre Dame Cathedral on a small island on the Seine River, which is an example of the Gothic architecture of the medieval ages and a sign of how the Frankish people started to assert their identity as French. It is visited by millions annually, the famous stained glass and gargoyles on the structure becoming iconic in their own rights. It has